Welcome in.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody, we're here with Coach Judkins from Palm Beach Gardens. Let's get started, Coach. You had a situation where you took over the program from Coach Russo. Most young coaches only dream of the situation you came into. You took the team. They were regional finalists the year before, and you reached a state Final Four in your first season. So talk about that experience a little bit.
Oh man, what a ride! It's a season that not only will go down in our history record books, whatever you want to call it, but a season that that's just memories for us forever. For me, regardless of how long I do this or whatever level, just the blast. And it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows, whatever you want to call it. We had plenty of adversity throughout the year, starting from the beginning, just a youngerish team. But those guys rose to the occasion, and we ended up in Fort Myers, which was our goal. We got the team that we wanted to face, the big dogs, and it was just heck of a run. And I'm still so proud every time that I think of that team and that season. It brings a smile to my face just thinking of what we accomplished, and really not having much on paper to start with, and everybody kind of ruled us out, and we worked our butts off. The guys bought in. We had tremendous leadership from the top, from seniors. A lot of those guys are playing big time college baseball now, and something I'll remember forever.
So transitioning from that year and the success you had there to this season, where you guys have gotten off to a little bit of a slow start, how difficult is it to make the adjustment from last year's team to a younger version this year and going through some of the growing pains you're going to go through?
Yeah, it's been a little tough. We have some great guys. We call them OKGs, our kind of guys, just super hardworking. They put the time in on the field, off the field, in the weight room, whatever it takes to make them a better player. They're a little inexperienced. And we're working through those pains right now. We really have focused lately on the process, on a lot about the mental game. We really want to be our best version of ourselves in May when playoffs start. It doesn't have to be February, early March. Just keep buying in, keep buying into that process. I know it's cliche and it doesn't sound sexy on paper, but it's something that, baseball is meant to be played every day, meant to be trained, and these guys are buying in. So, the record right now, it is what it is, but we certainly have some talent and we have some likable guys. So we're moving through some growing pains right now, but I think we'll be all right at the end of the year.
And how do you keep everybody grounded with the expectations, obviously, that have been built up? The expectations are always great when you get a program to that level, but how do you keep the team this year grounded to have them understand that the end goal is still achievable, even though it's been a slow start?
Sure. That's a heck of a question. We kind of live, last year was kind of the unfinished business hashtag that we just wanted to get it that one more game, just give us one more game. Let's get to the Final Four. Let's see what can happen. And maybe we can bring home the first state championship in school history. And we're very close. But we really accomplished a lot. And this year it's really it's more like a Joe Madden type thing where it's like, try not to suck, you know what I mean? And we don't mean that in like a bad thing. It's just when you get field time, there's a lot of competition right now. Guys that are inexperienced and guys that have some talent, whether it's a freshman or a senior, and they're vying for a spot. And it's kind of fun to see, hey, who's going to be in the lineup, whatever. It's not the end all. But that's kind of been our thing so far, is just be a sponge, absorb as much as you can, because you are a little green, you are a little inexperienced, and soak it up as much as you can. And when you get on the field, do your job and don't let anybody else take it. So it's been interesting so far, but like I said earlier, I think we're going to be okay in the long run.
So switching over to the game in general, you've been around for a while now. Talk a little bit about some of the things about the high school game today that drive you crazy.
We talked about this at media day. I think the lack of games for me is a big thing. I look at other states and talk to coaches from out of state, whether it's Tennessee or Alabama or Louisiana, mostly Southeast or even West Coast. And I see the amount of games that they play, and 25 for us, it just doesn't cut it. And I know that, logistics and travel and budgets and all that stuff, but that's a big one for me. I think 30 should be the minimum, at least, that we get to play in regular season. And whether that's meaning, cut the preseason short or extend it, whatever it may be, I think the state's, savvy enough that they can figure that out. I grew up and played high school in Maine, where we had 16 games and half of them basically had snow on the field. It was ridiculous, but we played them. And down here, it's like we only get 25. I mean, a good friend of mine coaches up in Maryland, and I think they get the same, if not more, than we do. And they can't even get on the field till mid-March. So that's one thing for me. The focus on baseball for a lot of schools is also something. And I know that's kind of political, and that goes down a rabbit hole itself. But I mean, some of the schools that you talk about, just locally baseball program wise, it kind of gets overshadowed by everything else, the football, the basketball. And I get it, there are tremendous athletes in those programs, but man, I mean, we have some good baseball down here, and I don't think it's talked about enough how good the high school game is. And you go to any game in Palm Beach County, Broward, Dade, you name it, it's going to be a fun environment. It's going to be some good ball being played, and it's just fun. So I think those are a couple things for me, the high school level, for sure.
Hitting on a little bit about that same topic, a lot of people want to talk about travel baseball and high school baseball and how they're interacting or not interacting. I have a lot of conversations with coaches about how they've restructured their fall league, their fall programs. And it goes to something to what you're saying, is because they're playing less games in the fall, they're getting in the weight room, they're doing other stuff. Because of the summers that these kids are having, a lot of the coaches have been forced to do that. But that also is taking away 25 or 30 games that you could be playing in the fall. So is that something, do you play more games in the fall to try to make up for those games that you're not gelling in the spring? Or is that something that everybody just has to accept, that there's just not as much fall baseball anymore?
That's an interesting question. That's kind of a tough thing to manage right now. We have definitely kind of broken the mold locally in terms of the fall league. Coach Russo for years, and I know because I coached in it with Gardens, we ran the fall league, and it was Gardens and Abacoa, and we had all the local teams in it from the North County, and it was good. It was good competition, but sometimes, between the guys playing travel, especially the upper guys playing in World Wood Bat and whatnot, that's kind of what they've worked for. So it's hard to run a high school program when that stuff's in the background, and you don't want to overuse pitchers and position players. Same thing with the young guys. Now they have the Freshman World Series, which is, fantastic event, but you don't want to overuse them. So we kind of transitioned to that weight room, a couple times a week, focus, really trying to be an athlete, to training, practice, like let's get in the mode of training, and not playing as many games. And I've seen some really good results from that. I've also seen things where guys have been inexperienced on the field, and come springtime, it's like, oh, we didn't check that box in the fall. We just didn't play enough games. I think, fall's hard enough with the weather. It's hard to schedule those 20, 25 games, whatever it may be. And then the matchups, I remember, a couple of years ago, we'd be playing a fall league game, and it would be a really good varsity team against, a school's kind of like BJV team. And it's like, what are we doing? Let's get a little bit more focused. And this isn't really fair to the kids. So I think we've been smart about it, but it's also, there's a learning curve for sure. And I think moving forward, everyone will kind of get a little bit more wise about that. And I know from our program, we're at a good spot in the fall, but I think, you could always play more baseball. So I get it for sure.
And sticking with that topic a little, because it's such an interesting topic, and it's one of the questions that I get all the time in email and when I'm out at the fields, the parents trying to balance the high school and the travel and figure out what's good for their kid, what's not. Do you wish, sometimes I think there could be more sync between the travel and the high school, where kind of working together, and maybe if the travel was regulated a little more like the high school, that maybe everything would fall into line. I mean, do you have that feeling?
Uh, Probably 1,000,000% on that. You know, just the last couple of years, kind of being the head guy with that type of responsibility. You know, you try to communicate with your players about, and certain organizations are a lot better than others with that communication, and kids are going to be kids. So, you know, they're going to go to class, they're going to train. That the good ones are going to be locked into what they need to do baseball wise. But you know, it's almost like keeping tabs on them. Like, hey, you know, we got practice Thursday. Oh, I'm playing a World Wood Bat. Well, it probably wouldn't be wise to throw a baseball, you know, if you're starting. And like I said, I think certain organizations are very transparent and very good at communicating, but others, it's almost like they're out there to just boast the commitments and boast the amount of players that they've got and whatever it may be, like promoting. And I just, that bugs me a little bit. I think probably it's in the same boat with a lot of other high school coaches. And we really are authentically looking out for the players' best interests. You know, we don't want to burn them out. We're just paranoid about the injury thing. We do want them to be exposed if the player is good enough, but at the same time, that communication has to be 2-3 ways at times. Like, hey, you know, we're playing a tournament this weekend, whatever it may be. We got to shut down for a couple of days or whatever. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's you realize these kids they're teenagers. They're not professional athletes, you know, and they're playing 10 months out of the year and pitching, and it's a lot to take in consideration.
And some of when I have these conversations with coaches, it seems like the high school coaches are in a tough situation because ultimately it was when the high school coaches sold out and started coaching the summer ball and the travel and everything that all this happened. And it's the high school coaches that are all so upset about the travel ball. And it's a tough position they're in because they're trying to provide for their families, a lot of them. So it's put coaches in a very tough position also.
It's brutal. I think, you know, as a high school coach in Palm Beach, and I can't speak for Broward, Dade, you know, Treasure Coast areas payment wise, but I mean, we're at 30-40 cents an hour if you do it right. And,
Right.
you know, and then all of a sudden a travel organization sees your name and sees your resume or whatever, and gets you on board, which is great. But you almost have to be in the travel game to be competitive at this point in high school baseball. And they're throwing out numbers in the thousands or whatever. And whether you have your own kids or not, but yeah, you said it. I mean, you got to put food on the table. A lot of us are teachers, so we're not, you know, getting anything over the summer, and it beats the heck out of teaching summer school or tutoring or something or doing lessons. So yeah, it's a difficult thing. I don't know where the answer is or what the answer is, but it's definitely difficult. And like I said, I think right now, I mean, you got to be in the travel game for the most part to have a successful high school program. You know, I did college last year. It was a blast. I mean, in the South Florida Collegiate League, which is a really, really good college summer league. But I realized, you know, I'm not coaching any of my players. I'm not coaching any potential players. I'm losing out on that. And, you know, we're not recruiting. It's just getting them in our program, you know, and you look at the other states too, again, in comparison. I mean, these guys in Georgia, these guys in Tennessee, Texas, California, they have their kids all year. And we're stuck, you know, we're kind of handicapped by all these rules. And it's like, I don't know what the answer is, but this probably isn't it.
All right. Switching over back to the game a little bit. In your career, like if you could bottle up one feeling that the game of baseball has ever given you, a moment or something, that it could be playing, it could be coaching, what would that feeling be?
That's a tough one. For me, like I said, growing up in Maine, you know, baseball is one of those things you just play because it's the season. And, you know, we had some pretty talented kids come out like around the time I was in high school and college that I played against. I'd say, I think adversity is a good word, but I also want to use opportunity because the game can give you so much, and it may not even be on your terms. You know, for me, I thought I was a pretty good player. I played Division III for 4 years, played at a smaller school up in Maine. And, you know, I wasn't get drafted or anything like that. But, you know, working hard, making connections, just nose to the grindstone attitude, willing to move around. You know, that was a big thing too. there's opportunity, just like as a player. You know, you always talk about, oh, it's a game of failure, but really it's a game of opportunity. There's always going to be a game the next day. So that's probably the big word that I would use, is opportunity. Baseball can take you a lot of places. You know, an example, we have a guy right now that's a Gardens alum. He's coaching with the Czech Republic national team in the World Baseball Classic. And it's like, you know, that's fantastic. I mean, it just takes you, you know, globally, it takes you nationally. I mean, we had, you know, an alumni last year, Nick Rickles, who played for the Israeli national team in the Olympics. I mean, how cool is that? So it's certainly a game of opportunity if you let it take its course. There may be some adversity, or there will be some adversity down, you know, through the lines there, through the game, but it's a lot of opportunity as well.
So everybody knows Coach on the field and sees you from the other dugout sometimes, or from outside the stands, but give me something off the field that you do, a hobby or something that would surprise maybe even your players to know that you do it.
I think my players know, because I bring, you know, my players are great. Last year's team was phenomenal. About, you know, my kids are young. I have a almost 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And we live, you know, I live a mile away from our ballpark. So, you know, my kids are at the field all the time. And, you know, last year's team, we had a bunch of guys that just took to them as almost babysitters. And they knew when the kids were around, like, I was going to be a little soft, you know what I mean? I wasn't going to be on them big time because my kids were there. So, you know, the expletives and all that stuff, that was going to be, you know, and they were awesome. I mean, my kids went to the Final Four. They were at the Final Four game at 2 a.m, you know, at Fort Myers. But so that's a big thing in my life right now, is just watching my kids grow up and just really absorbing that and enjoying it. They're at an age where, you know, there's something every night, and baseball is, for me, is another full-time job. But you know, raising kids, you know, that's the biggest responsibility. In terms of hobbies, you know, I'm pretty old school. I still like to work out a little bit. I try to show them up in the weight room every now and then. I like to run. My wife's the athlete in the family. She's getting inducted in the Gardens Hall of Fame this spring. So I'm just trying to catch up with her with that stuff. I like to read. You know, I'm a history guy. So doing that stuff, they would probably say I'm kind of a nerd with that. But other than that, I mean, nothing too extreme. Watching baseball all the time. That's really it for me.
So when you watch MLB, what players out there do you think represents how you play the game, or how you would have played the game? Who has your type of personality, but in an MLB player?
Ooh, that's a good one. Shoot. You know, when I was growing up, this is going to date me a little bit. I was a big Nomar guy with the Red Sox. That was really like, you know, kind of the pre-curse days for the Red Sox, or it was during the curse, but those teams were so good, but just not quite there. For me, I guess I was kind of a utility guy. I never really stuck with one position. So probably, you know, I like to watch MLB Networks. Maybe Mark DeRosa, I guess, because he was a utility guy. Not amazing at just one position, but all over the place. So I guess I'd hitch my wagon to that. But those guys, you know, anybody at the big league level is so darn talented. It's funny just thinking the comparison, you know, but I guess I could say that guy.
All right, so we're going to lighten it up a little bit here at the end. I'm going to give you some either or questions. You tell me the one you like the best. First one's going to be seafood or steak.
You know, like I said, I grew up on the coast of Maine, where probably half my town is lobstermen. Growing up on the water, I do like steak, though. I probably have to go with steak on that one. I'm gonna get a little chastised at home for it, but maybe no one's watching, so we'll see. But I got to go with steak.
All right, a perfectly executed squeeze play to win the game, or a diving catch in the outfield to save a game?
Oh man, I think a squeeze play, because that would mean that we're at home, we're walking it off, and we have great fans and a great ballpark, and you know you know, the music will be blaring, and you know, it'd just be a fun environment. So I'm going to say a squeeze play.
All right, music, rock and roll or country?
Ooh, that might be the hardest question yet. I got a lot of different genres of rock from all the way back, from 70s Rolling Stones to alternative rock. I do have a little bit of a country, bone there, I guess you could say, being from a kind of a rural state. I'm gonna have to go with rock on that one.
All right. BP or infield, outfield?
I'll go BP on that one for sure. It'll give everybody their chance to shine. They can hit the. I'll be honest. In college, I was a BP All-American. It didn't show up in the game, but it showed up in BP. So I'm gonna go with BP.
All right. Movies, a good comedy or a good horror?
Oh, good comedy for sure.
All right, last one. So you knocked at the door last year. You can get a state title this season, and it'll be the end of your coaching career, or you get no state title and you get 10 more years of coaching.
Oh, that was brutal. I said last year, if we were able to win our last game, I might be one and done too. And that, I don't know how well that would have been received, but I would have renamed the field from Joe Russo Field to Matt Judkins Field, and it didn't happen. We weren't even close, but we were there. Man, I really enjoy what I do. I think that is a calling. I'm gonna say my guys could probably kill me for this one, but I'm gonna say 10 more years.
All right, Coach. Good luck the rest of the year. It was great talking to you, and I'll see you out at the field.
Thank you. I'm sure our paths will cross again. We appreciate everything you guys do. I think I lead the league in amount of visits to the HSBN website between scouting reports and looking at stats and rosters. I mean, you guys just do such a tremendous job growing the game. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll catch up.
All right. Thank you.
All right.